Hello friends, I'm so excited. The Simon Says stamp January 2021, oi, can't speak, card kit just got here, literally just. So, as always, let's unbox it and see all of the fabulous things that are in this kit. So, this is the Snowflake season card kit. Everything's a little chilly. It's cold here right now. I gotta let things like thaw out, like the glue. Stuff like this. Sometimes, if you live in colder climates, like mine, things like glues, paste, all that sort of stuff, obviously can and generally will freeze. I find most of the time, as long as I allow it to completely come back up to room temperature before doing anything, like I don't open it, I let it sit, come back up to room temperature, and it works fine. Like I've had several bottles of the Craft Tacky glue arrive frozen because I've run out and had to order it in the middle of winter. But yeah, and then other things I'll do is if it comes back up to temperature and I find it has like thickened a bit because it has been frozen, I'm able to revive by just adding a few drops, just a few drops of distilled water and like shaking it up really well just to thin it out. I do that too after I've used up a lot of it and it gets down to however much, because it's been used so much air has gotten in there. I'll add a few drops, not much, because if you thin it out too much, it's going to be more water and then it's not going to stay as sticky. So that's a random tip there. So it's not, mine isn't frozen, thankfully. It's just cold. So it'll be fine. So you get a bottle of Craft Tacky glue. There is this beautiful 3D embossing folder. This is the Filigree Snowflakes. It's gorgeous. If you haven't been watching since, I think it was the Holly Jolly release, when Simon introduced several embossing folders, and then since that release, there have been a few others released in like kits and whatnot, or on sale. I have more coming that I've ordered because they're beautiful. But anyway, they've jumped onto the 3D embossing folder bandwagon with a vengeance. And yeah, this one is absolutely gorgeous. So you get a 3D embossing folder. There is, ooh, okay, yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. You get a snowflake wafer die. This is the ELIZA snowflake wafer die. It's such a nice size. To get the wafer die, the absolutely gorgeous stamp set. This stamp set is beautiful. So this is the Snowflake season stamp set. Winter greeting, there's snowflakes take home, snow happy for you, snow glad we're friends, thanks snow much. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. Love it. Big 6x8 stamp set. So there's that. There is a container, a big container of the unicorn confetti glitter, which is chunky and beautiful. Love. Love. Very snow, of course, you know, snow. Candy. Always love the candy. I have to hide those now because my kids have started noticing. They're like, what's that sitting on your desk? And I'm like, nothing. Nothing. It's mine. Anywho, so there's that. There's this beautiful patterned paper. This is Whimsy Stamps Blurry Flurries paper. It has a bit of a coating to the one side. It's not glossy, but it does have like a, it's hard to explain, but there is a bit of a coating to it. So yeah, it's all double-sided. It's absolutely gorgeous paper. Like, look at this paper. Look at it. Isn't that gorgeous? So you get 12 sheets of this paper. It is fabulous paper. The paper alone is just, you'd almost want to like frame this in a sense, you know, do a little collage I love stuff like this. Ooh, I really like that one. You do it that way or that way. It's like falling into a drift or falling. Ugh. So you get those. Again, beautiful. And then cardstock and envelopes, of course. So Simon's Sea Glass, one of my absolute favorites. I love Simon. I love all of Simon's cardstock. This is one of my favorites. And this is also a favorite, dull pink. Ooh, I love this color combo. So yeah, dull pink, sea glass, and lavender cardstock. And then this gorgeous holographic. This is, what is the name of this? Silver holographic copper design. It's neat. Oh yeah, my camera's like going nuts over it. But it has this like cool look to it. Isn't that neat? Ugh, that's so neat. Oh, like almost like it's been patinaed, and yet it's not, obviously, because it's just all, it's like silver in the holographic. It's beautiful. So you get that. I'll kind of cover that up a bit just so it doesn't drive my camera completely insane. And then the envelopes, of course, a gorgeous sea glass metallic. I think you can kind of see the sheen. It's just pretty. And then a dull pink envelope, a white envelope, and then these are the new Simon holograph envelopes. Same thing. I think I had ordered a pack of these when they were released. They're cool. How fun are those? Those are so fun. I should have ordered more than a pack, I think. So, anywho, that is the card kit in a nutshell. Like I always do, I will link to the card kit because you can buy it individually, the subscription because you can subscribe, there's info on that, I'll link to that. I will link to everything that is available individually because like the stamp sets of individually, the embossing folder, etc. So I will link to all of that. And then stay tuned because now I'm going to make something using all this fun stuff. So of course, I made a ton of cards. I wasn't originally intending to make this many, but once you start, you just can't stop. I had to use this embossing folder. It is fabulous. And the pattern papers. I started cutting them down to, I started with 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so all A2 sized. I did save all these other pieces because I was like, ooh, there's so many things you can do with them. They're so pretty. But I trimmed them all down. And again, I was like, oh, I'll do kind of like one of each sort of color because, you know, there's purples and blues and aquas. And then I trimmed them all down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Just somewhat randomly choosing which side of the papers I was going to want to show because they're double-sided because both sides are fabulous. And then once I have all of these papers trimmed down, I'm going to emboss all of them with this Filigree Snowflakes embossing folder. I've shown this in a couple videos how I do this. And even though these papers, like I'd mentioned, have a little bit of a coating on them, again, they're not glossy. It's just, they're not just like flat paper. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a little bit of a coating. However, I still sprayed these very lightly with water. So first off, I'm going to pull out my Spellbinders Platinum machine. This is what I use for all my manual die cutting. If I want to use my electric machine, I'll use a Gemini. Other people have made these work in a Gemini. I can't speak to it, but Simon lists it with their embossing folders. But I use my Spellbinders Platinum machine. I lay out my big flour sack cloth just so I'm not getting water all over the place. And I lightly mist these with water. Just like a few very light mists. It's just enough to kind of help soften the fibers, especially if you find that your paper is cracking, regardless of what type of paper you like, cardstock paper, pattern paper, etc. Lightly mist it with water. That just softens everything a little bit and it helps it go through with embossing folders a bit better. So I lightly mist it, I stick it in the folder, run it through my machine. Now with my Spellbinders machines, whether it's a Platinum or Platinum 6, my best sandwich that I figured out is the platform. I have 2 metal shims and then the embossing folder. That's it. What you can also do if you only have 1 metal shim or you don't have any is use a few sheets of heavyweight cardstock. You just got to fiddle. You'll know once, you know, it comes through, and if it's not very embossed, add another piece of cardstock as a shim. That works great, you know. And again, Simon does have listed with their embossing folders, like all the different sandwiches that people have figured out with the different machines and what's been working best for everyone. So this is what works best for me. So I just kind of did a few at a time. Since I did all 12, I was basically doing like 4 at a time. I would lay out on the cloth, lightly mist, and then run through my machine. So then I've got a dozen backgrounds just done. And I posted about it on Instagram. I was so excited. I was like, look at all these amazing backgrounds. Like, the camera doesn't do them justice. I tried to like get it to sort of focus because they're just, and with this one, because like some embossing folders, depending on what the image is, like only the one side really looks good. You can use either or, but you know, only the one side looks great. With this particular one, either side is fabulous. So I actually ended up doing half with the snowflakes raised up, and then half of them I used the pieces with the snowflakes like embossed into it, if that makes sense. So you can literally just do whatever you want. So I had all these fabulous backgrounds. So then I took the silver, that's fabulous, like silver foiled cardstock from the kit, and I die cut it with the Snowflake wafer die. And then I ran that through and die cut all of them. And then I sat and just, you know, popped out all the pieces, which didn't take very long at all. This stuff die cuts like a dream. I've been kind of hoarding it since Simon started releasing all these holographic papers because, you know, magpie tendencies. But it just, I don't know, I think it has to do with like that foil finish to it. It just die cuts so nicely. So I die cut all those snowflakes and then set those aside. And then for my kind of main sentiment, I'm using the circle sentiment from the Snowflake season stamp set. And I just had a bunch of scraps of smooth white cardstock. So I was just lining them up in the corner of my Misty and then stamping the sentiment in a bunch of different inks from Simon that kind of went with these papers. And I will list all the specific Simon inks I used. But I just kind of went through and would use just different colors for the different backgrounds. If you wanted to simplify this process, you could just like stamp it in black. That would still look fabulous. Or stamp it in silver. I'm going to do a sentiment in silver. That would have looked really pretty too. Something like that. But I was just in the mood to stamp everything in color. So I just kept going along, stamped all the little sentiments as many times as I needed in a different color of ink, cleaned off the stamp, stamped it in other colors. And then once I have all of these sentiments stamped, I'm going to use one of my circle wafer dies from the nested circle die set. And I'm just going to tape it in place with a little bit of washi tape and then run that through my die cut machine and do that to all the sentiments. And this size circle ends up cutting out just the sentiment and not the little dash line around it. You could do either or, but I actually kind of liked that just because it made it a little bit smaller because I didn't want to cover up too much of the die cut snowflakes because they're fabulous. So this is the one I just chose to use. And then once I had it lined up, taped it down, ran it through my die cut machine, and then just kept repeating the process until I had all of these done. And then once I've got that done, I've got all my little circle sentiments, my snowflakes, and my backgrounds. All my backgrounds I decided to trim down to slightly smaller because even though I cut them to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, when you run anything through any sort of embossing folder or do any sort of dry embossing on cardstock, it's going to change the dimensions. Like if it's not the same size as it was because a lot of that paper is being pressed into, you know, whatever shape. So I trimmed all these down to roughly, it was like 4 inches by 5 1/4, something like that. So I just went along, trimmed them down. You could leave it that and just adhere these directly to the card base. That would look fabulous. I almost did that, but I was like, it just needed a little, just a little extra something. So off camera, I trimmed down papers from the kit and then a few other colors of cardstock from my stash. Just slightly bigger than this, and then I'm gonna layer them all together when it comes time to adhere it. But this is how I do, and I've shown this in a lot of videos, how I kind of do my mass production method. When I'm doing multiple cards like this at once, I do everything at once. So I did all of the 3D embossing at once. I did all of the snowflake die cutting at once. I did all of the stamping for the sentiment once, etc. And it just makes everything go so much faster. So I've got everything for the front ready to go. Now it's time for the card bases. So all my card bases are just heavyweight white cardstock, and they're going to be A2 size cards. So I've opened up my cards because these are all side folding A2 cards. So I have it opened up and I put it in my Misty and just slightly above the bottom because this stamp is huge. This is the big kind of border stamp from the Snowflake season set. It's beautiful. I had to use it. So I lined it up on like the spine of the inside of the card. And then I'm going to stamp it with the same inks I stamped the little circle sentiments on the front. And I'm going to do the exact same process. So I'm going to just ink up the stamp it onto the inside of a card base, and then just keep repeating the process in the same amount of colors that I'm going to use on the outside of the card. So it just kind of pulls everything from the outside to the inside, because you guys know I got to have something on the inside. And this would gave me the opportunity to use this stamp because, again, it's fabulous. And this was fast. I was just going to stamp like some random snowflakes from the set, you know, like I normally do on the insides of cards, just stamping them here and there in different colors. But this ended up actually being a lot quicker to use just one large stamp, ink it up, and then just keep repeating the process. So I just kept going along and lining up each of the card bases, inking up the stamp, and then when I switch colors, I quickly clean off the stamp, go on to the next color. And I always start with just my lighter colors and work my way to the darkest. It's just the easiest, especially when you're working with really deep, intense colors like the dull pink. That is a very intense color, as is like steel blue, and I used island blue. So it just makes life a little easier in case, you know, I don't clean off my stamp perfectly, to work from lightest to darkest. So after I had all the sentiment, or the snowflakes, I got to add a sentiment. So another sentiment from the set. This is the Snow Much Thanks. It's fabulous. Normally I would just stamp it in black, but I realized I wasn't using any black. If I had done the sentiments on the front in black, I would have done the one on the inside in black. But since I didn't, I pulled out my Delicata silver ink. I gotta even look up the exact name of it. Silvery Shimmer ink. I love my Delicata inks, especially my Golden Glitz, but all the Delicata inks are fabulous. Just so pretty. I do highly recommend, if you get any Delicata inks, get the refill as well, because these are metallic pigment inks. They're very thick ink, and these type of ink pads you do need to refill more often. Again, it's just the nature of the type of ink. But all of these, I'd stamp the sentiment. I would ink it up and stamp it, usually at least twice, just to make sure I got full good coverage. And again, like my camera doesn't really pick it up, but it does have that really pretty like silver shimmer to it. It's a gorgeous ink. I'm not big on silver. I usually tend towards gold for whatever reason, but it was really pretty. So after all the insides are done, now all I would got to do is start assembling. And I just went along and adhered all of the embossed pattern paper backgrounds to the pieces of cardstock that I had trimmed down. And then the snowflakes, I just added a few little dots of the craft tacky glue just to like the center areas. I left the outsides with no adhesive, so they kind of stick up a little bit. And then the little circle sentiment, adhered that down with glue, and then I would just set acrylic blocks on top of it just to give it a couple minutes just for everything to dry. And then I'd go on to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, until I have a whole stack of a dozen card fronts all adhered. Once all those are done, I'm just going to adhere each one to its card base, and I just made sure that I was matching the color of the outside sentiment to what I'd stamped on the inside. And as always, once I had finished like adhering all of these to the card bases, you could always stop here. I did think also another easy thing to do, I was going to just add little tiny like dots of the craft tacky glue to the background and then pour over that confetti glitter that comes in the kit. That would look fabulous. And I tested it and I was like, ooh, this is nice, but I couldn't help myself. I love these crystals. And again, I have a lifetime supply of like so much bling. So I'm using my faves again, Studio Caudia silver foil crystals and Studio Caudia icy sparkle crystals, which are the clear ones with the shimmer in them, which just set off these card fronts so well. So again, just sprinkled them throughout the card fronts and just adhered them into place with dabs of the craft tacky glue, and then just repeated the process. And that was it, like super simple. But again, you could easily just do little dabs of the glue and then pour over that confetti glitter, let the glue dry for 15-20 minutes, whatever, until it's completely dry, and then brush off any excess, and that would be great too, and it would look fabulous because it'd be all blingy too. So either way works, or don't add bling if that's your thing. But you guys know I'm a magpie. I need it, need the bling in my life. So 12 cards with this kit. Absolutely love it. It was so much fun. Kind of having a hard time really showing with just the sheen on the paper and the embossing, and then the foil, and like my camera freaks out on reflective things like foil. So I'm trying to show how fabulous these are. But you just got to trust me. They were fun. The embossing is just, these papers. I really loved this kit. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to be using the stamp set and this embossing folder. Who knows? Like, you can never have too many snowflake sets. Just like floral sets. That's my personal opinion. You can never have too many. I get more and more every single year, and I will always. Anyway, as always, there will be a link below the video to my blog post. I'll link to everything like I said earlier, also link to all the extra supplies I used, all that stuff. That'll be in the description box below the video, as well as on my blog, which is also linked. And I will be back very soon with another video. So thank you all so much for subscribing and thumbs upping, commenting, all of it. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!